And we're going to go ahead and start what I consider the more formal part of the celebration by introducing her sorority sisters. This is the Sisters of Beta Sigma Phi. You will see on the table in front of you, there are 2 pieces of paper associated with the sorority. When Mom went into the hospital just 2+ weeks ago, a couple of the sisters came by and said, you know, you are going to be featured in our upcoming newsletter. We want to give you this article that we've written about you and so forth. So that's what's printed on there. In addition, there is a photograph from a 1948 newspaper article where she originally joined the sorority. In the upper left-hand corner, you can barely make out Piers Webb, I believe, pointing to her and whatever in that picture. But so that was an important part of her life. In the early part of her life, she was not able to be active until just a few years ago when she caught something in the paper and called me up and said, you know, I joined the sorority a long time ago, and they're starting up again here in Lake Clark Shores and Lake Worth, and I think I'm going to go. And I said, I think that's great. And so for the last 2 years, I've heard nothing but stories about how much she has enjoyed the time with you ladies. So with that, I'd like to thank you for being here, and we're honored. And if you will please do your ceremony that you would do. Thank you.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm Helen Martinson. I am the current president of the Florida Xi Xi Ta chapter here in Palm Beach County. All of these ladies are members, and we're here today to honor and celebrate Virginia. Dearly beloved, we are gathered together this afternoon in sorrowing sisterhood to consecrate in our hearts and memory the life and virtues of a dearly departed sister, Virginia Webb. She was affiliated with our chapter now, but as George said, she actually joined the sorority in 1948. Saw an article in the paper and rejoined our group in 2012. I'm not sure how long she was active, but I think it was about 15 or 16 years. She served in the short time she was with us as our Sunshine Chairman. I don't know the offices she held a long time ago, but she was an inspiration to all of us. As she stood before in darkness, initiate, so stands she now, initiate to the mystery of death, and we in the somber shadows of our grief. The glowing torch of her bright self must be henceforth absent from us here, but the clear light of her spirit shall remain undimmed to guide and strengthen us whom she preceded. In life, she was devoted to the good, the true, the beautiful, and was by color, form, and music touched in tears. With loyal heart and with unflagging effort, she faithfully fulfilled her duties here. Then, being weary for a moment, she lay down to rest, using her burden for a pillow, and fell into that dreamless sleep that kisses down her eyelids still. While yet in love with life and raptured with the world, she passed to the timeless silence and to formless space. So every life, no matter if it's an hour, to be rich with love, and every moment jeweled with joy, must at its close become, to those who stay, a tragedy as sad and dark as can be woven into the wrap and woof of mystery and death. But in this night of death, hope sees a star, and glistening love can hear the rustling of a wing. She was a faithful and true friend, a treasure and estimable in possession, and deeply lamented in the loss. If we in her lifetime were not always worthy of her love, let us now in her death resolve to be more worthy of the love of all other members of our sisterhood. Nothing is more common than to talk to a friend, nothing more difficult than to find one, nothing more rare than to improve by one as we ought. She has taught us it is best to live in the time as friends to those with whom we would be in all eternity, for true friendship is infinite and immortal. The record of generous life runs like a vine around her memory, and her every sweet, unselfish act is now a perfumed flower. For everyone to whom she did a service, to bring a blossom to her grave, she would sleep tonight beneath a wilderness of flowers. Life is a narrow veil between two eternities. We strive in vain to look beyond the heights, but through the mist of our tears, the light of love beholds a rainbow. The rainbow of her virtues, red of her courage. Orange of her loyalty. The yellow of her vision. The green of her fellowship. The blue of her humility. And the violet of her service. Character survives. Goodness lives. Love is immortal. The torch of our sisterhood lighted her way on earth, but she hath now no need for the sun or moon. But we have need to keep forever bright within our hearts the memory of her living presence. Speech cannot contain our love. She was, she is our sister. Now, we're going to do a closing. Okay, you need to extinguish her. Okay, now we're going to join the fingers. And the last part. May the Lord watch between thee and me, while we're absent, one from the other. That concludes the service. We need to thank you so much.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you for being here. Because I know you all love Virginia, as much as we do.
That was the formal. This is going to be somewhat informal. You'll see I'm a little bit irreverent in what I'll be saying as far as some history and whatever, because to me it's a celebration and that's what I remember. You'll see some of the things I'm going to talk about my mom. And then we're going to close at the end here. But I'd like to mention just some family members that are here. Back in the back, the gentleman in the corner that looks a little bit like me is my Uncle Carol Webb and his wife Helen. Up here at this front table, we have two of my mom's cousins. We have Jean and Mary David. Thank you guys for being here, and Jean's husband, Roland. So, appreciate that. The wonderful pictures you've seen, you will have probably seen a young gentleman in there. That is her grandson, Jordan. Jordan was not able to make it down for this. He was here last week when she got into hospice the first 2 days. She was there. They had a real opportunity to have some great conversations and talk about some memories and so forth like that. And the timing was just wonderful as far as being able to do that, because frankly it seemed like whenever he left the very next day, she decided she was going to go into her prolonged sleep. And so she was with us a couple more days and then passed away on Saturday morning. So I want to thank you guys for being here, and two other special people that we consider like family are up here at the front table. We have Marta and Mary, who are her longtime caregivers. She was very fortunate to have these people that a lot of you were with over the years. They were with her at the hospital, and you know, the love was both ways, was there and very obvious between them. Marta was the weekend caregiver, and I couldn't seem to manage to get on my mom's schedule for the weekend, because Marta would involve her in her family activities, and she'd be going to this party and this thing or whatever around town. She has a large family here in Palm Beach County, and Mom just loved it. She got out and was able to experience some different stuff, so that was just great for her, so it was really, really special. And a lot of you interacted with Mary. I mean, she was the one that got her to the bridge games, you know, that she went to regularly every two to three times a week. So I just wanted to make note of that before I get into a little bit of family history as far as her. The other thing I want to tell you is that for whatever reason, my mom did not trust me. And I don't understand, because I consider myself very trustworthy. We're in the hospital after about the 5th day or whatever there, and you know, she's okay, she's cognizant and whatever. She had a couple of little periods when people get in the hospital. If you have an experience, they're called sundown effects, where to me they just start getting a little loopy or whatever, but this was not one of those. So she looks at me and she says, "Now, you're going to give me a funeral, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, you know, that's what you've wanted, and of course I'm going to give it to you." "No, I want you to promise." I said, "I promise." She said, "I want you to write it down." I said, "Okay." So I have my handy-dandy pad of paper, and I have here a pad that says, "I, George Webb, will provide a funeral for my mother, Virginia Webb, signed George T. Webb." I handed it to her. You all have interacted, not all of you, but most of you interacted with my mom. You want to know what she said? She said, "I need you to date it and put the time on it." Then she said, I want a pen. And I said, "What are you going to add?" So next thing I know, she says, "It now says, I, George Webb, and Jordan T. Webb agree." So that's her grandson or whatever. And then she writes, "With the care of the city of Lake Worth," because that's where she's going to be buried, in the city of Lake Worth cemetery or whatever. And she writes "forever" and underlines it. I'm going to be keeping this as a keepsake or whatever. So that's just one of those things to give you the flavor, and a lot of you have seen that as far as her and how she deals with people and deals with life. So she deals with me the same way. But Mom was very proud of her Pierce heritage. That Pierce was her maiden name, and Pierce is a name that is associated my first time with the Civil War. Turns out that I have a relative in the form of her, I don't know, his great-great or whatever grandfather, who was the clerk of court at Appomattox. And his house, and it's still there, is preserved as part of the Appomattox. If you don't remember your history, that was where the Civil War concluded or whatever, and they had the signing of the two generals or whatever. And he was the clerk of court for about 40 years in Appomattox or whatever, and his name just happened to be George T. Pierce. If it sounds familiar, my name is George T. as well. George T. was also her father's name, and it was her brother's name as well, and it was George T. Pierce. Jordan carries on somewhat. I chose not to burden him with the George, but he has the Thomas in his name as well. Unfortunately, I mentioned her brother, he was not ever a part of my life and our life, because he was killed in World War II. He was trained to be a translator and went over to France, and on his first day, as he was being transported to the frontline troops, was the first day of the Battle of the Bulge. And he was killed within hours of his first day in France, trying to get to the front by German artillery in the transport column. So we never knew him. He was a a great individual, very bright, one of those